Benu's mornings always began early. The sun had just started to rise when he opened his eyes, looking at the soft golden light that filtered through their small window. He loved the mornings. There was something special about watching the world wake up. He quietly got out of bed, making sure not to disturb Ria, who was still asleep. She looked peaceful, her dark hair spread across the pillow like a soft blanket. Ria woke up shortly after, stretching and yawning, a warm smile already forming on her face as she saw Benu standing by the window. "Good morning, my love," she said softly. She didn't need to ask about his plans for the day. She already knew he would head straight to the fields. "Good morning," Benu replied, his eyes meeting hers. There was no need for words to express what they both felt. Their love was quiet, steady, and true. They worked together in perfect harmony, sharing every task, big and small. Ria would sometimes tease him, saying that she was the brains behind their farm. But Benu didn't mind. He knew she was the reason they were so successful. They ate breakfast together, simple food that they had grown themselves, fresh bread, eggs, and a small bowl of fruit. The morning passed quickly as they worked side by side, tending to their animals, checking the crops, and fixing any small repairs around the house. Ria's laughter echoed through the air as Benu made a silly comment, and the sound was a melody to his ears. As they worked, Benu couldn't help but feel grateful for this life, even though they had little. He had Ria, and that was enough. Theirs was a life of peace, of small joys and simple pleasures. Not far from Benu's farm, Nishad sat in his large, well-furnished home, surrounded by wealth. He had everything one could ask for: large rooms, fine furniture, and servants who catered to his every need. His life was a stark contrast to Benu's. But despite all the wealth and luxury, Nishad often felt a sense of emptiness. One evening, as he sat in his grand dining room, drinking wine from a golden goblet, his wife, Maya, entered. She was a beautiful woman, dressed in the finest silks and pearls. But as always, her mind was not on the deeper things of life. She admired the expensive decorations around them, touching the silverware, the chandeliers, and the fine carpets, while Nishad stared out of the window, lost in thought. "Maya," Nishad said quietly, almost to himself, "do you ever wonder about the happiness people find in simple things? Look at Benu and Ria. They have nothing, yet they seem to have everything." Maya looked at him, confused. "What do you mean? We have everything. We have wealth, servants, and the finest things in life. What more could we want?" Nishad sighed. "It's not the things. It's the way they live. Benu and Ria are happy in ways we can't understand. They love each other, and they have a peace I envy." Maya, still not fully understanding, nodded. "You're always thinking about them. Why not just visit them and see what makes them so happy. The idea of visiting Banu and Ria did not sit well with Nishad. But as the days went on, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something missing in his life. He began to envy the quiet, contented life Banu and Ria shared. Eventually, he came up with a plan. One afternoon, he visited Banu. He found him working in the fields, as usual, his hands covered in dirt, but his face bright with the satisfaction of his hard work. "Banu," Nishad began, his tone calm, but with an edge of something more. "I've been thinking. You and Ria seem so happy, but you must know that she could have a much better life with someone who could provide her with wealth and luxury." Banu looked up, startled by the comment. "What do you mean, Nishad?" Nishad leaned in slightly, his voice lowering. "I think you know what I mean. You are a hard-working man, but you are not rich. I believe your wife deserves more comfort, more luxury, more happiness." Banu felt a sudden chill, though the sun was warm on his skin. He had always respected Nishad, but this proposal felt wrong. "I don't understand," he said, his voice wavering. Nishad smiled, sensing Banu's confusion. "I propose a simple exchange. You take my wife, Maya. She is beautiful, but not as clever as Ria. You would have a comfortable life with her, and I will take Ria. A woman like her deserves a life filled with luxury. She will be much happier with someone who can offer her everything." Banu's heart sank. The thought of losing Ria was unbearable. But at the same time, Nishad's words planted a seed of doubt in his mind. Was he truly enough for her? Could he offer her a better life? "I need some time to think," Banu said softly, looking away from Nishad. Banu could not get the conversation out of his head. That night, he lay awake beside Ria, staring at the ceiling. She had fallen asleep easily, as she always did, her peaceful breath a comfort to him. But he was restless. The next morning, Banu decided he needed advice. He couldn't bear the thought of losing Ria, but Nishad's offer was hard to ignore. They decided to visit the village elder. The elder's house was small, but full of warmth. He greeted them both with a kind smile. The elder had seen many things in his long life, and he was known for his wisdom. When Banu explained the situation, the elder listened carefully, nodding thoughtfully. "You are troubled, Banu," the elder said after a pause. "This is a difficult matter, but I believe the answer will come through a challenge I will give you." Banu looked at him with curiosity. "A challenge?" The elder nodded. "Yes, a challenge to test the true value of love and understanding. You and Nishad will each host a meal. The goal is not to impress with wealth or fancy food, but to show kindness, hospitality, and warmth. You will both serve your guests, but you must do it in a way that reflects your hearts." Binu was hesitant, but he agreed. he trusted the elder's wisdom and believed that whatever happened, it would help him understand what was truly important. Both Benu and Nishad began preparing for the meal. Nishad, of course, had no shortage of wealth. He ordered the finest meats, wines, and fruits from faraway lands. His servants worked quickly, setting up a grand feast in his large dining hall. Benu, however, had no servants. He relied on his own hands and the help of Rhea. Together, they gathered vegetables from their garden, freshly laid eggs from their chickens, and herbs from the field. They had no fancy spices, no rare delicacies. But what they did have was love and care. Rhea, as always, was a big help in the kitchen, sharing her thoughts and ideas on how to make the meal even more special. She smiled as she worked, her gentle laughter filling the air. Benu watched her, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. She was more than his wife. She was his partner, his equal. And no matter what, he knew he couldn't let her go. The day of the challenge arrived. Nishad's grand dining hall was full of guests, all of them admiring the luxurious setting. The food was plentiful, but there was a sense of coldness in the room. The servants served the dishes, but the atmosphere felt distant, impersonal. Nishad sat at the head of the table, eager to show off his wealth. In contrast, Benu's home was humble, but warm. The table was simple, with just a few handmade plates and bowls. The meal was served with care, and every guest felt welcomed. Benu and Rhea moved around the table, making sure everyone had enough food and that they were comfortable. The elder watched carefully, noting the difference in the two meals. Nishad's was impressive, but lacked warmth. Benu's was simple, but filled with love and kindness. After the meal, the elder gathered both men and their guests. "I have seen much today," the elder said, his voice calm and steady. "Nishad, your wealth has made you forget what truly matters. You have the finest things, but you have not learned to value kindness and love." Turning to Benu, the elder smiled. "You have shown that the true wealth in life is not found in gold, but in the hearts of those you care for. You are rich in love, and that is more valuable than anything wealth can buy." Nishad, humbled, left the gathering quietly. He had learned a valuable lesson about the importance of kindness and love over material wealth. Benu and Rhea, on the other hand, left with a renewed sense of gratitude for the life they had. They continued to live simply but happily, their bond stronger than ever. The days after the meal challenge were quiet. Nishad had returned home, but the grand halls of his house felt emptier than ever. The lavishness that once brought him pride now felt hollow. He couldn't stop thinking about the simplicity of Benu's home, the warmth of their shared meal, and the easy happiness that had filled the air in that humble space. He spent days wandering through his house, thinking about his wealth and the emptiness he had often felt. Despite having everything he could ever want, he had never truly understood what it meant to feel content. His mind kept returning to one thought. What had he been missing all along? One evening, as Maya joined him in their grand living room, Nishad looked at her and sighed. "Maya, I've been thinking. I realize now that no amount of wealth will ever bring true happiness. It's not about the things we own, but the way we treat others and how we connect with them." Maya raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by his admission. She was not used to hearing such serious thoughts from him. "What do you mean? We have everything. Our life is perfect." Nishad shook his head, his mind clearer now. "No, Maya, we don't have everything. I see it now. It's the simple things that matter the most: kindness, understanding, and love. I'm ashamed of how I treated Banu and Ria. They have something we can't buy. And it's not just about them. It's about everyone I've ignored or looked down on just because I thought wealth made me better than others." Maya didn't quite understand, but she saw the sincerity in his eyes. For the first time in a long while, she began to wonder if there was more to life than just luxury. Meanwhile, Banu and Ria had returned to their daily lives, but the events of the past few days stayed with them. Banu couldn't stop thinking about the challenge and the elder's words. The whole experience had shown him something important about himself and his life with Ria. He knew now, more than ever, that wealth was not the measure of a good life. As the weeks passed, Banu and Ria continued their routine, working hard on the farm. But their relationship had grown even stronger. There was a new understanding between them, a deeper appreciation for each other. Their bond was not only built on love, but also on respect, and the shared understanding that their happiness was not determined by the things they had, but by the way they lived together. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat on their porch, looking out at the setting sun. The sky was a beautiful mix of pink and orange, and the air was calm. "Ria," Banu said, his voice soft, "do you ever think about what we've learned? About what really matters in life?" Ria looked at him with a gentle smile. "I think about it every day, Banu. It's not about what we have or don't have. It's about what we share, how we care for each other, and how we treat others. The love we have, the respect we show. Those are the things that make our life beautiful." Banu nodded, taking her hand in his. "I'm glad I have you, Ria. I know I'm not perfect, but with you by my side, I feel like I have everything I need." The connection between them deepened, And as they sat in peaceful silence, they realized that they had more than enough. Their love was enough. Nishad, after much reflection, decided that it was time to make amends. He had changed, and he knew that it was important for him to admit his mistakes. He had never been one to apologize easily, but he felt it was the right thing to do. One morning, he went to Benu's farm. His heart raced as he walked up the familiar path, but there was a sense of purpose behind each step. He could hear the sound of Benu and Ria working in the garden, and as he approached, he saw them both bent over, tending to the crops. Benu noticed him first and looked up, surprised. "Nishad," he said, with a cautious but polite tone. "What brings you here?" Nishad took a deep breath. "I've come to apologize, Benu. I was wrong to offer you such a deal. I didn't understand the value of what you have until I took the time to think about it. I've learned that true wealth is not in gold or land, but in love, kindness, and understanding. You and Ria have something that can't be bought, and for that, I'm truly sorry." Benu looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. He had expected Nishad to be proud, but this was different. "I appreciate your words, Nishad. It's not easy to admit when you're wrong, but I believe that it's never too late to change." Ria, who had been listening quietly, smiled warmly. "We all make mistakes, Nishad. What matters is what we do afterward. If you truly understand now, then that's all that matters." Nishad felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He had expected to be judged, but instead, he found kindness and forgiveness. He stood there for a moment, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you," Nishad said, his voice filled with genuine emotion. "I will do better. I promise." As time passed, the changes in Nishad became more apparent to the villagers. He began helping others, offering advice to the younger traders, and contributing to community events. He was no longer the proud, arrogant man he had once been. He had learned the true meaning of happiness and was determined to make a positive impact. Benu and Ria, too, continued to be a source of inspiration to everyone around them. Their love and warmth spread through the village, reminding everyone that it was the simple things in life that mattered the most. One day, the villagers decided to host a small gathering to celebrate the unity and kindness that had blossomed between the two men. It was a humble celebration, with food shared among friends and laughter filling the air. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the village, the elder stood and raised a cup in a quiet toast to love, kindness, and the wisdom to see what truly matters. May we all remember that the greatest wealth is not what we hold in our hands, but what we hold in our hearts. Banu and Ria smiled at each other, their hearts full. Nishad, standing nearby, looked at them both with gratitude. He had come to understand what true happiness meant, and it wasn't about riches. It was about the people you love, the kindness you share, and the respect you give to others. In the years that followed, Banu and Ria's life remained steady and happy. They continued to work hard on their farm, growing their crops, raising animals, and living a life full of love and joy. Their bond was unbreakable, and their respect for one another grew stronger each day. Nishad and Maya visited them often. Though their lives were still different, they had learned to appreciate the simple pleasures of life, and they had developed a deep respect for Banu and Ria. Nishad never again tried to measure his worth by his wealth. He understood now that the richest man was the one who had love and kindness in his life. The village, too, had become a place where people cared for one another, helping each other out in times of need. The lessons that Binu and Ria had shared had spread through the community, changing it for the better. Banu and Ria often sat together in the evenings, watching the sunset and enjoying each other's company. They had everything they needed, and as they looked out over the land they had worked so hard to build, they knew that true wealth wasn't in the land or the things they owned. It was in the love they shared and the happiness they had found in each other.